Welcome back to another episode of Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie. I am the brains and the powerhouse behind Transcendent Wealth and, of course, this podcast. And today's episode is going to go deep into a topic that doesn't get, in my opinion, nearly enough airtime in the world of wealth, and that's protection. We talk so much about scaling and growing our money, but what about keeping it safe? What about healing the trauma that shaped how we earn, spend, or gift? My guest today is Amanda Caesar. I hope I said that wrong because I hope I said it right. I forgot to ask. A globally recognized financial expert, author, and advocate for vulnerable clients. She's the founder of two businesses, the creator of the Financial Abuse Specialist course, and a woman who's turned her personal money story into a powerful mission to educate, protect, and empower. My favorite things. We're talking about everything from financial abuse to ethical investing to the limiting beliefs that keep even the smartest women stuck in fear around money. So, as I say, let's get into it. We're going to go straight in and talk about money. You specialize in helping people understand and prevent financial abuse, which I love because I don't think many people think about that. Can you break it down what that looks like and how often it really happens?
Yeah, sadly, it's about 1 in 6 women and 1 in 13 men admit to at least once in their life having been the victim of some form of coercive control or financially abusive relationship with their partner. So when I say admit, there's a lot of shame and embarrassment about it, especially with an intimate partner. So the actual results could be a lot higher than is actually admitted to. So it's something that happens quite a bit. And I know the Me Too movement has highlighted a lot of sexual abuse cases. But, we hear so many stories and, these people listen and going, oh, if it was that, why didn't you just leave? We hear this all the time. And one of the main reasons is money. Because if you've got little children and no resources and nowhere to go, it's a very powerful draw card to stay put and deal with the BS and, hold because you've got nowhere to go. So sometimes finances are the underlying reason why people have to stay in an abusive relationship.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Why do you think, because I'm sure some people are saying, well, I wouldn't. And I'm going to tell you now, you don't know what you would do unless you were in the shoes. Trust me on that one. But why do you think even intelligent, successful women will still fall into these kinds of situations? What leads us into that? Why?
Because they don't start that way. It's usually this, beautiful, charismatic partner that appears and wows us and sweeps us off our feet and it's all wonderful. And then one day a little weird thing happens and you're like, oh, that was a bit out of character. Oh, well, I know what they're really like. And we go on. And then the weird thing that our gut tells us that's a bit odd happens again and again. And in the meantime, we're being undermined emotionally. So it's not just, it's that old frog in the pot. We jump out if some weird psychotic thing happened to us straight away that was super controlling and a great big red flag. But when it's this very slow burn that they've got us, they've won us, we're looking forward to this beautiful future that they've promised us together. And then all the weird stuff starts happening. By the time the pot's boiling, we're sitting there going, how on earth did I get myself into this situation? It's not just no, I'm going to coercively control you and take all your money.
Because if that happened, we would all be like, screw you, I'm out.
Very quickly.
But right? We wouldn't think twice about it, right? Okay, so
also, I guess don't ask those questions right at the beginning. It's like, oh, my parents had these beliefs about money, or what did your parents believe about money? They're not kind of normal conversations to bring up.
Well, and that goes back to what I've talked about several times on my podcast. Money is so taboo that when it comes to having these conversations, most don't, because we were taught that we didn't talk about it. So if we were taught not to talk about it, when we go and meet the person and we think we want to spend the rest of our lives with them, one of the first things we should be talking to them about is, what are your beliefs on money? How is your spending habits? I mean, Honestly, that's something that, how do you feel about saving? What are we going to agree? Are we going to agree to a joint checking account? Are we going to agree to have a household account and then our own spending accounts? And, so often I'm like, but why would we do that? And I'm like, because it gets a lot of shit out of the
Well,
way.
you
And
asked
you end
about,
up
do you
knowing. That
want
way you know. I
it
mean,
should be as important as do you want to get married and have kids one day? Are we compatible in this space right from the start? So
right,
yeah,
right.
the money questions are really important. We're going to contribute 50-50. If I'm not working, does that scale back? If I'm looking after the children or elderly parents, how does that look? So,
Yeah, like if
there's
I'm
a
if
lot
I'm
to
a
get.
stay-at-home mom and I'm taking care of the kids, what is the 50 contribution? Or if the husband's doing, again, what is that contribution? And you have to talk about it so you both agree, because I guarantee you what he would consider 50-50, or what they would consider 50-50, can be woman, woman, man, man, whatever. But what they agree to be 50-50 and what you agree to be 50-50, I guarantee you is going to be different, because you're two different people and you're going to assume, and we all know what assume does. It gets us in a lot of trouble. So just sitting down and just having these conversations, I think could just, I don't know, just save us so much heartache, and hopefully would at least give us maybe a tidbit of some type
Bit of
of
an inkling,
sign.
yeah.
Yeah.
Gender stereotype roles that we've all grown up with where,
Hmm.
the woman stays home and takes care of the house and children and the man's the breadwinner. And that's how it's been for generations, the hunter, the gatherer, the cook, all this sort of stuff. So that's kind of ingrained. And it is difficult to go, well, if we don't want to play that game, how's it going to look for us? Do you want to be the stay-at-home dad? Do you want to be the stay-at-home mum? How does that look? Are we both going to go back to work really quickly? Actually, we're never going to have children. We're going to be a double income family, but how are we going to split the bills? You earn twice as much as me. Is it going to
Hmm.
be 1/3, 2/3? So yeah, there's lots to work through, and it can be confronting to have those conversations.
Yeah, but I think if you have the knowledge about money and you're able to have and just sit down and have those conversations, I think that helps with, one, with the communication, and two, it helps avoid a lot of issues later on, right? And it kind of
Absolutely.
brings me to my next question: what are some early warning signs that someone might be giving up too much financial control?
I think there's a very good case where there's usually one partner who just delegates and the other one's like, well, I'll take care of it. So it's a fairly normal dynamic. And the more you just give up and go, I'll let them do it, whether it's him or her, um, and go, I don't really care about the details. I hate that. I'm not interested in all that. They can take care of it. You are giving up control. You are putting yourself in a position to be financially abused if you choose not to have any interest in how it works. The amount of partners where, hubby dies, they've been married for 50 years, and she goes, I don't even know who we bank with. She's got to go find paperwork because he took care of everything. Terribly normal in many partnerships. I mean, my husband comes to me sometimes and goes, I've got no idea what I'd do. And I went, I've tried to have this discussion with you that many times. He at least knows where we bank, by the way. But and we've also got access to our own accounts. But there's so much that people, they bury their head in the sand and go, oh, my partner takes care of that. So you're opening yourself up to both financially abused and being taken advantage of by your choice of naivety. So it's up to you to go, you know what? It is actually more empowering to be in control and just know. And it's not about taking it over or anything. It's just understanding where everything goes.
Mhm. I say it so often: knowledge is power. And the more we know and the more we understand, the more we're able to do, and the more empowered we are, right? And I don't know about anybody else, but I'd rather feel empowered than feel like I'm being controlled. And I think that's important. I'm curious, what helped you move from the scarcity mindset to one of abundance and empowerment? Because you have a story behind yours. You had this scarcity mindset. You had where you had early beliefs about money. Can you give us just a little bit of that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to confronting. I mean, most of us, if we think back to our childhood and someone asks the question, what did your parents teach you about money? The first answer is nothing.
Yep, that's mine. That's my answer. Nothing.
Because most of them didn't know what to teach us. The second answer, when we delve a bit deeper, is the lessons we observed. And then it's like, was it money doesn't grow on trees? Only the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. You know, those kind of thought patterns. You know, did we see our parents giving to charity? Did we see our parents, sitting down and doing the books? So even though they might not have said anything, perhaps there's still lessons there that we learned. And ours was very much, we had a one income family, 3 young children. Dad was a very low income earner. Mum did a little bit of home hairdressing. And I even look back then, and I think she'd bought some shares very young, and they came up 20 or 30 years later, and she was a bit excited to get, $1,200 or $1,400. And Dad goes, oh, good, the rates are due. Took it off her and spent it on the rate. Like, no discussion. It was just, oh, well, that's due. So, and I remember her being really peeved about that, instead of going, no, that's mine. You should have covered it. So those sort of little incidents, they might not have sat down and went, right, child, this is how we do a budget.
Right.
But
right.
there's all those other things we learn. And the scarcity mindset, was often, you did grow up in, a working class family or a, middle class, and it was just an observation of how, could we pay the bills? Was there always food on the table? If I asked for anything, was it always no? Did we ever have holidays? Did we get bought things on those holidays? So you've got a pretty good idea of where you fit in the social strata when you're at school, whether you realise it or not at the time. And so scarcity and abundance seems to come from those kind of upbringing stories. And it's not until we're older that we can sit there and challenge and go, actually, do I still believe that? Is that working for me right now? I remember sitting there, my dad would always, keep your life simple. Don't complicate. You don't need to get involved in all this stuff. I've got God knows how many companies now, he wouldn't be able to keep his head around it. But it was not until I sort of went, well, actually, I need these structures in my life to be able to simplify my tax and accounting. So they're actually not complicated. They're making my life easier. But understanding that was talking with lawyers and accountants, not going, keep your life simple, don't do it, Amanda. So it's when you get into those crossroads moments and say, actually, that belief no longer holds. Professionals have given me the opposite advice. Where am I going to choose to put my trust and beliefs? So, and then you sit there going, wait a second, what else was I told or have in a belief about that isn't working for me anymore? And that's a really confronting thing to do, because sometimes they're these core things that we don't even realise that we hold on to.
Right. And that's what I was going to say, is it's something really important is just to sit down, right? That's really important. Sit down and look inward and see what those beliefs are, and are they still serving you? I think that's the hard part for a lot of people to do, is actually sit down, acknowledge what their current beliefs are, and okay, where did it come from, and is it serving me? And that's what you're saying. You need to recognize it and say, okay, is it serving me? And if it's not, then okay, I get to change it, right?
Absolutely. It can display in some of our habits. We chronic spenders. Every time we see something, there's the impulse buy. It's like, oh, that'll make me feel better. I'll just grab that handbag. I'll just get those shoes. I'll just get that toy for the child. We end up with all this stuff. And we're like, why am I always in debt? Why is the credit card never paid off? Why can't I get ahead? And yet we're buying all this stuff that we don't need, that ends up in the charity bin, 3 to 6 months later, and it's still sitting on the credit card. And we're going, I never can get ahead. It's just terrible. My life's so hard. Not looking at how are we contributing to this life that's so hard.
Right. Or, and like you said, well, it sounds like our kids they'll see an outfit or something they need, and then it's in the closet for 6 months, and we're like, wait, I thought you wanted, needed it, wanted it, and wear it, and then they never wear it. I mean, and you're right. So often that's what we do.
But that's also a beautiful opportunity to be able to start teaching our children money lessons.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's something for school that they absolutely have to have, I get it. This is a need, not a want. Then if it's, this absolutely amazing outfit, some people use that as a teaching lesson, like, okay, it costs this much, $30. Do you know how much mummy or daddy has to work to make that outfit happen? We have to do a full day at work for you to be able to buy that outfit. have a think about it. Do you still want or need, or maybe we can save up for it for Christmas or a birthday, or
Yep.
it's something special. It's not just the bank of mum can just constantly reach into this never-ending credit pit and
Hello.
the bank of mum, or, I remember one mate of mine as a kid said to his mother, just put it on Visa, mum. But I had no idea what that meant, that mum has to pay the Visa. So just put
I used to tell my mom, just write a check. My mom, because I'm that shows my age. We didn't have visas. We didn't have debit cards or credit cards. Okay. When I was growing up, we had checks, and my mom would say she didn't have the money. I'm like, well, just write a check. I didn't understand. I was like, you have checks, don't you? And she was like, yes. So then just write a check. And all she would say is, no, that's not how that works. I'm like, okay, but why not? Why? I mean,
I thought it
just
was
write
just
a
write
check.
it and money appears.
I
It's,
mean,
again, a beautiful
and
teaching moment.
I'm like, if you have a check and you can write it, then you can go and get it. And, and now my kids are like, well, don't you have your debit card or credit card? I'm like, yes. Okay, well then go, no. And I do, I've sit down and explained it. I'm like, and my oldest is autistic. So the explaining, it doesn't always,
Bit harder.
she doesn't always grasp it. And I still say it. I'm like, just because we have the debit card does not mean that there's money, or just because we got the credit card doesn't mean that there's actually money to do those things. And, one of the things I do is I have separate savings accounts. So like there's an account for out to eat. And my girls now know, don't come tell me put it on the debit card or credit card. Mommy, is there money in the out to eat account? Because if there's money in the out to eat account, then I can use the debit or the credit card, because I'm then going to immediately move the money and pay it. And so they know to ask. And if there's not any money in there, and I show it and I show them there's not, then they know we're not getting anything out to eat. And hard truth, they don't like it. And it has saved me a lot of sanity.
And
of saying this is a set amount that's going into this account each month. If it's not there and there's no money in it, then we ain't you're not going, or we're not going. And it's just, again, it's coming up with something that works, right? And
Absolutely.
having a way, and then being able to talk to them and explain it. And I think that's really, really important. You're a big advocate of ethical investing. And I love the fact that you didn't just say investing, you said ethical investing. And for listeners who are unfamiliar, and I'm sure there's many, because they're going to say, what's that? What's the difference? What does that actually mean?
It depends on the actual client and what your values are, actually. So there's different types.
That's what I was hoping you would say.
There's different types. We have our own ethical choices. There might be brands, okay, Mac might still test on animals because they want to be sold in China. And we're like, oh, I don't care. I like Mac. I'm going to buy it anyway. And other people go, there is no way I'm touching the particular brands now because they still test on animals. Then we've got the Temus and the Shein, that, it's highly possible that some of these brands use slave labor. And it's like, well, actually, I can't afford anything else. I'm going to shop on Temu anyway. Or, you know what? I'm not doing that because. So these are things that are important to us individually. And some people, I really don't care. And ethical investing kind of similar. We can go, well, I want investments in companies that either don't have weapons, or they don't support smoking, or they don't support drug, or they don't support child exploitation or slave labor. Whatever those things are that are important to us, there's probably an investment out there that will go, you know what, we fit that. We won't do those things. You are important to you. And I think the David Attenborough Principles guide quite a few investments. The UK actually have something that's guided by what David Attenborough wants for the environment and the planet. So, things that are important to us, we actually can now find companies that go, well, there's actually not just you. There's a few people that believe that. And we've put together this portfolio that probably matches your goals. So do you want to have a look at the investments that are underlying? I had one client come to me and I said, is ethical investment important to you? He goes, yes, I don't want coal mines in my portfolio. Don't want that. And I went, well, I noticed you've got some shares in BHP, and one of their subsidiary companies has 2 coal mines, so we better get out of BHP. And he's like, you're not touching my BHP shares. How important is it really to you?
That's where you go, okay, I just said there's coal mines. So how much of a big, huge value, core value, and that's why I want to say core value, how much of a core value is that to you? Do you just say it, or do you mean it except for, this? And I think that that's really important, because I think ethical investment's important. When I first heard the word, I was like, what exactly? What do you mean? And I thought that that's what you were going to say. I was hoping that's what you were going to say. And I love that you said it, because I've talked about it being aligned with our values. How we spend our money should be aligned with our values, our core values, right? How we save money, how we manage it. It should be aligned. And how you were saying we should also invest it, ethical, that's being aligned with our core values. And if we're out of alignment, I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face. It messes with all areas of you being wealthy. Remember the 5 wealth codes. It's spiritual, energetic, mental, physical, and financial. And it's going to mess with it because, spiritually and energetically, if you really don't want to, for example, do coal mines, but you say you're not going to touch this, okay, are you truly aligned? Or is it because you're afraid that something's going to drop or whatever, and now you're out of alignment? And there's no right or wrong answer to that. That's only a question that you personally can answer. And I think that's really important to know too, right? That,
Yeah. And look, some people
we're
will
all
look
going to
at
have different values.
the returns of some of the portfolios and go, you know what? It's really not performing how I'd like it to. Maybe I will go back to a traditional form of investment. Or, you know what, I still want to be aligned with my values. Maybe I'm going to put 10% of my portfolio in socially responsible investing, and I'll see how that goes. I'll put a toe in the water and see. And, over time, I've had other people come and go, I do not want a single investment that's not ethical in my portfolio. They're usually quite, woke millennials that, it's very important to them that they're doing this right from the start in how they invest. So, there's horses for courses. There's people who absolutely refuse to invest in anything that could possibly smack of something that might hurt the environment, our planet, the people on it. And others who go, you know what, I'll take a punt. I don't really mind. Vanguard's managing it for me. I'm not quite sure where they put it. It's up to them. That's what I pay them for. Bury my head in the sand one more time. That's fine.
Okay, I'm curious. How do you personally balance your values with smart money strategy?
I'm very big on doing research into the products that I buy and not just investing. So I am a bit of a Nazi about not purchasing products tested on animals. I don't want any to wear clothes that, could have, a little child in India is running through scrap heaps, trying to find things. So, and some of our biggest brands are responsible for, not being as ethical. And usually when we do have mass produced and super cheap, you can have a look and see. So, it's not like I'm going to look up I want a white T-shirt and I'm going to spend, $65 on something I can buy, for $5 at a still ethical store. I'm not quite down that rabbit hole. So, but, some people choose to be. It's like, I want this to be the most ethical cotton T-shirt I've ever bought. So I think it's that trade-off between, I can still get it for $5. It wasn't produced by slave labour, or I'm going down I want to push these brands so that they, get more mainstream. For me, it's that trade-off. I don't want, products tested on animals. I don't want slave labor. If they're things good for environment, there's other investments that they call social impact investments. So where they can do good socially as well. So I like to explore some of those. And again, some of them take a while to get going and the returns may not be there, and I might be better off in a, term deposit with my local bank until they've proved themselves or had a bit of a history. So it's doing a bit of reading, and I think understanding what motivates us. Some people go, I don't care about the tobacco. I don't care if they make armaments. We have to have a defence force. So again, what aligns with me, and everybody's different. We've all got that line in the sand that we won't cross, or we will.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it kind of comes, I talked about this with someone else, and this just reminded me, it's kind of aligned with how, like, what food we eat or what food we buy. We were talking about how a lot of people are eating totally clean, right? And I was, and people are like, well, are you trying to eat clean? I was like, I am eating as clean as possible. I cannot say I'm 100% clean. One, I live in the US. We're just going to put that out there, right? Two, you got to have a certain amount of money if you're going to make sure that you're eating 100% clean. Like, okay. And I'm not there yet. Okay. However, I am very strategic. I'm like you. I now read the back of ingredients. And, I told somebody, I said, if it has more than one ingredient that I cannot pronounce, I immediately put it. Like, if I look at the ingredients and it's got 5 6 syllable words that I cannot pronounce, I'm not getting it. And they were like, well, if it has one, I'm like, well, then I'm doing a little bit more research, right?
Yep.
And it's the same thing. It's like, am I going to put that back and get something that I can read all the ingredients and it's going to cost me 5 times the amount? Or am I going to get something that's going to be just as good? They are ethical. However, they put one thing in there. It's being able to
make the trade.
Right. So I tell people, it's like, look, I can't say I don't eat processed 100%. I don't eat processed food. I can tell you I am about 85-15 now. I can't say I'm not 100% because I had a slice of pizza from a frozen pizza yesterday.
Yeah.
I only had one slice, but I did have a slice.
Yeah.
And
I was
that was
saying, with a
do I
girlfriend
mostly eat
as
healthy and
like
clean?
you said, it's the choice you make in any given moment, isn't it? So
yeah,
the girlfriend I had in Michigan, she was saying to me one day, like, oh, my poor husband, he gets all these terrible migraines all the time. I don't know what to do. And I said, can I ask, what does he eat each day? She's like, oh, well, I'll make him a packed sandwich for lunch. I do the best I can. And, I might throw in a packet of Doritos or some corn chips or something like that.
Empty carbs. Like, I knew exactly what you're saying.
I'm just going, the chips that you're giving him, do they have yellow food coloring in the seasoning? And she's like, well, yes. And I'm like, all right, let's have a look at that packet because yellow is notorious for causing headaches and migraines. She's like, oh my God, are you telling me I'm poisoning my husband? I'm like, well, it may be his reaction to that particular coloring. So yeah, he might be able to still have a corn chip, but you might have to go a natural flavor, not one with the artificial yellow coloring. She's like, I didn't know about this. So I'm like, well, unless you do the reading, you don't.
Well, but it's also not on the back. It's got the ingredients, but it doesn't tell you what's possible, right? And so
often the food coloring numbers are in Australia. I don't know if they're in the States as well. But
I don't know.
We're
the last country to get rid of the red food coloring. So, and that just comes back to, again, what is your values, right? And do your due diligence, do your research. Don't trust what you're reading on a portfolio or what you're reading on an ingredient. Go and, y'all, we have Google. Okay.
We have Reddit. We have ChatGPT. We have
if you don't like Google, you got, what is it? Microsoft Edge. Bing. You got Safari. You got enough. You got Bing. You've got enough search engines. And if you don't, go ask your child, because I promise you they can name a whole bunch more because my child can. Then I can, and you can just go search it. Now, is it going to take you down a rabbit hole? Probably. Be diligent on what you click on, but still research. Read, like she's saying, and especially with the investment, because I had a client and she was frustrated with one of her investments. And I was like, okay, but, did you go and research it? And she's like, no, ask the person. And this is what they said. And I said, please don't take this the wrong way. Take what they said with a grain of salt. Go get it, put it in, and ask the question. Do your research. I promise you'll get your answer. You may have to do a little bit of digging, but you'll get your answer. If it doesn't come back to the answer you want, then go back and start having another conversation. And because, again, it's your money, right? And you need to make sure it's aligned with your values. I think, especially when it comes to women, we're so afraid to say, no, that's not what I want you to do with my money. And one of the reasons why I created this podcast, for the love of God, stop. Just do it. Just if it's not what you want, tell them to.
This magical device in our pockets now that could actually give us the answer to every question we ask. Oh, that's right. We do.
Right, exactly. And then you got all these chat GPT apps and whatever AI apps, and I'm pretty sure they can do the research for you and spit it out in
Absolutely.
like 10 seconds, as long as you ask the right question. And I think it's just really important. In the questionnaire that I sent you, you'd said that one of the things you were most proud of was having more assets than debt, which I think is really important. And being in a position to choose your next steps. I tell people that wealth is different than being rich. And in
Massively.
a lot of my ways, to me, being wealthy is more than, hear me out before you disagree with me, okay? It's more than just assets, having more assets than debt. It's living aligned with your values and your goals. If that's working a job, great. That's owning your business so that you're home with your kids and you have freedom to take time off, even better. For me, that made me wealthier than anything in the world, because I didn't come from money, have money. So I wasn't sure what it was going to be like to have it anyway. What I wanted was the freedom of when my child needed to be going to having assistance at school, or I had to fight for whatever, have her appointments, whatever. I was able to do that without having to jump through 50 hoops to be able to do it. Okay. And so I think it's important that you're looking at, like I said, those wealth codes, looking at all those areas and being aligned. And assets and less debt is important too. There's a difference between good and bad. Another podcast, I promise. I've gone over it. Sometimes debt is necessary when you have a business, if you utilize it correctly. And there is also still the bad debt. It's what we call frivolous spending without being strategic and just spending to spend. Kind of like what she was talking about. You go buy all this stuff and it's in your closet, but you still have it on your credit card. So the question, what does real wealth mean to you this stage that you're in?
I think when you put it into those 5 categories before, that's where you have to look at the wealth in those 5 categories. Do I feel spiritually wealthy right now? Whether that means going to church every weekend, giving back to charity, meditating in the mornings. What does that look like for you? And I'm wealthy if I get to do my 10-minute meditation 3 times a week. I'm wealthy physically if I get to do my aqua aerobics class 2 times a week and back to myself. I'm wealthy now that in my family because I've got 2 very tiny little grandbabies and I get to take Fridays off and hang out with a 2 and 1-year-old and get snotted on and coughed on and loved and cuddled
and you
kissed
get to spend money and not have to tell them no, because grandparents say that that's their right. That we said no to you as kids, but we get to say yes as grandparents. It's called a right.
My daughter-in-law rang me last week going, "What did you feed my child? He's gone mental." And I'm like, "Wasn't me. I don't do that."
I don't know what you're talking about.
Actually,
that is wealthy. I love that. I love that. That is wealthy. What are you talking about? It wasn't me. I don't know. Nobody else was with them. Still wasn't me.
So it's in each of those categories, we have to look at what it means. So financially, yes, having more assets than debt is important to me, and living within my means, having something left at the end of each week that I then choose. Do I put that against debt? Do I put that into my savings? Do I put it for future Amanda in my retirement account? That's wealth. It doesn't have to be a lot. It might mean I just, we all say, "Oh, I'll give up my coffee in the morning." That's fine. What are you going to do with that $5? Is you going to leave it in your wallet and spend it on something else? Or are you going to go, right, that $5 is going into my future retirement account. It's going to bring down my debt. Just saying I'm not spending on that anymore makes absolutely no difference.
No sense.
If you don't direct it into something positive. So wealth can be such little things. It doesn't have to be, I now have $1 million in the bank, I am wealthy. It's not about that. I mean, none of us are Scrooge McDucks anyway. Life doesn't work like that. So wealth can just be, I got to spend 5 minutes on my own without anyone interrupting me and have my lemon ginger tea on the in peace. That was my wealthy moment for the day, for my health and well-being, for my mental health, whatever it was. It can be that simple. Wealth isn't always about the dollars.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I agree. And, I also agree financially that, yes, more assets than debt, and being able to, when I go to bed at night, did I make the best decisions possible with the money that came in, with the decisions that had to be made? And also, to me, I paid my bills, because I know it's like not to have the money to pay my bills. I've been able to pay my bills, and I'm grateful. and I'm thankful, and I express that, right? And then, you know, is okay, if I had to have debt, and I made it a thing, I don't hold anything back. I had to carry debt to keep my business in practice last year. 2024 was a difficult year. All businesses have difficult years. Fair warning, they all happen. And I did what was necessary. Okay, am I doing what's necessary now to bring myself out, to bring my business out of that? Am I in alignment with that? And the answer is yes, I am doing those things. So I'm getting to where I'm going to have more assets than debt again, right? In my business and all. And it's making sure that you're being strategic. You know, I tell people all the time, before you go to spend, wait 24 hours and make sure it's not an emotional spend or an emotional investment. Make sure that it's strategic and it's what you want and it's not emotional, because so often we react and we go and spend, we do it out of emotion. I think it's really important to know. And like you said, for me, if I'm able to do my workouts, I work out with my trainer 4 days a week. If I'm able to do all of it, I'm super wealthy. If I'm able to, no matter what life throws at me, if I'm able to get at least 3 of them in, I'm great. I'm wealthy, right? And I think that that's really, really important. I think my question is, what do you wish more women knew about protecting and expanding their wealth without burnout or fear?
I think the truth about money is really boring. I think everybody's after this really
Amen.
sexy, get rich quick. It's really boring. It's know your numbers and live within your means. It's not
But
rocket science.
I say that can be sexy though. I say knowing that can be sassy and sexy, but it's right. At first, it's really boring.
But you know, the concepts and ideas are hundreds of years old. They're not new. They're not going to make you rich overnight. But the beauty and the sexiness of it is that it gives you control.
Mm-hmm.
If you know that it costs you $493 a week to pay all your bills, and you make $500, you know you're covered. You don't have much left, but you can pay everything to live. If you have a $600 per week outgoing and you only earn $300, you know you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got options. What can I cut back? How can I earn more? So it puts you in this position of going, what do I need to live? So I think, as boring as it sounds, doing your spending plan or your budget or whatever you want to call it.
I call it the money roadmap. Just do it.
Money roadmap. Yes. And most people come to me and go, well, I can't do that because, I'm in the gig economy and I never know what I'm making each week. Don't give a toot. I won't.
You can cuss. I don't care.
What you're making. If you don't know what has to go out every week, how can you then allocate when you do have a bumper week or a dodgy week? If you still don't have that $4.93 it costs you to live each week, or $8.97, how are you going to allocate when the money comes in? Most people live on a fairly fixed income. Others are at the whim of their bosses and how many shifts they get. But at least if you know what it costs you to wake up and breathe per pay cycle, you then know where you can allocate that money. Are you making enough or not? Do you need extra work? Are there things you can cut back on? Do you need to get a border into one of your rooms?
And the same thing goes if you're an entrepreneur too. I mean, how many times I've got, oh, well, I just, I don't know. I just got to make money. I know I got. She said, what was the first thing that you have to know? I love her already. You have to know your numbers. You have to know how much is going out, how much is coming in. You've got to be able to know that in order to determine, okay, should I be making more or should I make cut? Or should I use the line of credit for this month? Y'all, how I made the decisions I made last year and how I make them this year, which is getting me out of it, is by knowing what the hell is going on with my money, knowing my numbers. And when you don't know your numbers, you're just burying your head in the sand and you're just going, oh, I'm just going to leave it to, whatever.
The universe, it'll all work out. That's my
Oh
abundance.
my gosh.
The universe will provide.
Okay. No.
Which I respond, the Lord helps those who help themselves.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right? Okay, you got to help yourself. And then, okay, you have dropped so many powerful insights today. So before we close out, tell us where people can connect with you and learn more about your work. And if there's a free resource or a starting point that you would recommend I would love for you to share that with our listeners because you dropped a lot of awesome insights today.
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn as Amanda Cassar. Now, there is an Amanda Cassar in the States. She does yoga. So you'll be able to tell us apart really quickly. I'll be the Australian financial advisor, not the American yoga instructor.
And if you're not sure, just listen to the podcast again. The accent should give it away.
I'd love to provide you, for people who are interested in the ethical investing, I do have an ethical investment questionnaire to see what's important to you. So I can
Ooh, I
happily
like that.
share that resource
Okay.
with you so that you can go through and go, oh, what is important to me? I can tick a few boxes and work out my tolerance that way. So I'd be more than happy to share that with you guys, Lisa Marie. So yeah, look forward to hearing, if you've got vulnerable money stories, if you were a victim and who's become a survivor, I'd love to hear about what happened to you. Collect those stories. I'm very interested in people's survival stories. I think they're fabulous and motivational. So yeah, please share.
I think that's awesome.
Because there's people who are currently in victim mode who need to hear that there is light at the end of the tunnel and you can get past this. So they're really important as well. But yeah, love to stay in touch.
And y'all, I'm going to be signing up for that. It'll be in the show notes. The link will be in the show notes. We'll make sure it's there. I know I'm going to be signing up for that because I'm really curious to see, where it is that the aligned. And I want to make sure that I'm aligned. And I'm hoping that this episode resonated with you and that you can see, okay, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You're not alone. You can make changes. And if this conversation brought up some things that you've been pushing down, maybe you've avoided looking at your finances, or maybe you're realizing your money story was never really yours to begin with. It was actually somebody else. Then it's time for a wealth alignment call. This is your space to drop the shame, ditch the guesswork. That's what I always say. Get a clear picture of what needs fixing strategically and emotionally. The link is also in the show notes. I'm here to help you. That's what I do in those wealth alignment calls. They're free. And as always, until next time, remember, confidence and cash are the ultimate power duo. I don't care what anyone else says. I believe that. So go check in with your money. Amanda said it too. And as always, have a fantastic and wealthy day. Bye.
Bye.